journey to the spirit world to get the help from spirit helpers in getting information or in healing. And Native Americans would, upon reaching adulthood, go out on a vision quest, seeking their totem animal and to find direction in life. And I've done that myself a number of times, and I found that to be a very effective thing to do. And I actually do have a chapter on that in my book, Simple Meditation. In the year I spent in clairvoyant training, we learned a whole variety of techniques for connecting with our higher self, with spirit guides, guardian angels, and some of that's in my book also. It's something that all of us can do, and it's something you absolutely can learn. And if there's anyone there who thinks, well, I'm not psychic, that's not for me, it's my experience that this is something that everyone can learn. I'd like to just share a technique that you could go home and use today. And that basically, this is very simple, but when you get into a deep meditative state, ask that important question that you've been looking for an answer to. And what pops into your head is probably your inner wisdom or your intuition, your psychic abilities. Now this is something different than thinking up the answer to a question. With that, it takes a little effort and you find yourself analyzing it. With practice, you get to know the difference between your inner wisdom and something that you just thought up. Now, I didn't always feel very psychic, but I worked on developing these abilities, and now I have a strong relationship with my spirit guides, guardian angel. And I'd like to share just a couple of stories with you. One is, you may remember the last time I spoke here, I spoke about after I had surgery for prostate cancer. I went through a period with a lot of anxiety. I had so many thoughts racing around in my head that I had a hard time meditating. I would try, but I couldn't really hear what my spirit guides had to say. I had too many thoughts racing around. I also was avoiding doing any kind of speaking, except that I had forgot to cancel a Skype interview with the Spiritual Broadcasting Network. Well, I struggled through that interview, and I got to talking about my wolf totem animal, and I hadn't really given him much of a thought for a couple of months because I had too many other things racing around in my head. The next day, Mary and I were in town, in Bellingham on McLeod Road. Mary was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and we drove along a patch of woods. I glanced over, and a wolf came trotting out of the woods alongside our car. Now I'm talking about a physical wolf, not a spirit wolf that I was seeing with my eyes closed. I was quite amazed. I knew that there aren't a lot of wolves around Bellingham, and this was kind of strange behavior for an animal. Mary stopped in the middle of the road. I rolled down my window and took this picture. The wolf looked up at me. It did a circle around our car, looked at me again, and then trotted off towards Squalica Mountain. I was extremely moved. I knew immediately it was a message from my totem animal, letting me know that my spirit guides were around looking out for me, even if I couldn't hear them at the time. Another experience I had was a number of years ago. I was rafting the Snake River. We were doing the Hell's Canyon Rapids. I was with a friend. I was in a small raft. A 13-foot raft may not sound that small, but the Hell's Canyon Rapids is some really big water. It was big enough that my raft just about flipped over backwards a couple of times because there was only me in the raft and not very much gear. Now my friend was in a much larger raft with his wife, his daughter, and his sister, and they had lots of gear. So they would get to the top of the waves, and they would just kind of plow through them much more so than I did. When we would get to a big rapids, we would stop, scout the rapids from alongside to pick out our best course through the rapids. This particular rapids, the worst rapids we came to, had big boulders on the right side of the river. The left side of the river all headed down, funneled down into a big diagonal wave. Now below this wave was called what they call a hole, a recirculation, where the water swirls back on itself. This is not a very good use of the law of attraction, but what's going through my head is I'm going to go down, get flipped over in that big wave, and then recirculate it in this big hole. I really didn't want to do this. So I asked for volunteers from my friend's raft. Come on, help hold my raft down so that I could get through this big wave. For some strange reason, no one else had any interest in swimming through those rapids either. So what I did is, before I set off down the river, I called on a spirit guide, one I refer to as Chief. And I said, you know, I'd really like to get down these rapids upright. Is there anything you can do? Well, I set off into the river. I got over to the left side, so I was avoiding all the big boulders. But this put me on a course that should bring me right into that big diagonal wave. Except the next thing I knew, I was past the wave and I never even saw it. And you can bet I was sure watching for it. Now, I'm still not exactly sure what happened. If there was the spirit world caused an ebb in the flow and the wave momentarily disappeared. Whatever happened, I deeply expressed my gratitude before I continued down the river. Now, I think that all of us probably have magic moments in our life when the spirit world, God, steps in and helps us out. And maybe at the time we didn't even recognize that that's what happened. But I'd really like to encourage you once more to try these 3 keys, if you don't already. Get out and connect with nature. Meditate, make that a regular habit. And strengthen your spiritual connections by communicating with God, your spirit guides, your guardian angel. These 3 keys have brought some magical moments into my life and have put me on a path that I think is really in a lot more alignment with what should be my true spiritual course. And I'm confident these 3 keys can do the same for you. Thank you.